Ethan Cole had lived on his family ranch for nearly 4 decades. His hands were calloused from years of fencing, plowing, and raising cattle. His skin was weathered from sun and storms, but his eyes still carried the spark of a man who loved his land more than anything else in the world. This ranch wasn't just soil and fences, it was legacy. His father had built it, his grandfather before him, and Ethan had poured his own sweat into it, so his children could one day inherit something real, something pure. But one morning, as the sun was barely breaking over the horizon, Ethan heard the sound of machines. Not the gentle hum of a tractor, not the rattle of cattle gates, but roaring engines, drilling, grinding. He ran to the ridge where the tall grass bent in the morning breeze, and his heart stopped. Strangers were on his land. Heavy trucks had rolled across his fields. Men in hard hats and neon vests were driving stakes, hammering into the soil, dragging machinery onto his property, as if it belonged to them. Ethan's blood ran hot. He jumped into his pickup and tore down the dirt road, dust flying behind him. When he pulled up, he shouted, "What the hell do you think you're doing on my land?" The men barely looked at him. One of them, a foreman with a clipboard, smirked and said, "We've got approval. The HOA voted it through. Pipelines going straight through this way. Nothing you can do about it, old man." Ethan's fists clenched. "The HOA. They don't own my land. This ranch has been mine since before half of you were born." But the foreman only shrugged, waved to his crew, and within minutes, the sound of drills and digging filled the air again. That night, Ethan sat on his porch, his hat low over his face, the smell of turned soil hanging heavy in the air. His wife, Mary, came out quietly, setting a hand on his shoulder. "We'll fight this," she whispered. "We always have." But Ethan felt something crack inside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure fighting would be enough. The HOA was powerful. They had money, lawyers, politicians in their pocket. He was just one man with a ranch and a heart full of rage. The days that followed were worse. The pipeline cut straight across his grazing fields, scaring off cattle, poisoning the earth with oil and dust. His fences collapsed under the weight of machinery. Neighbors avoided him, afraid of crossing the HOA. And slowly, painfully, Ethan watched his life unravel. He tried lawyers. They told him it would take years. He tried the sheriff. The sheriff told him his hands were tied. He went to town meetings, where the HOA board members sat smug in their tailored suits, brushing him off like he was nothing but an inconvenience. One of them, a man named Richard Hale, even looked him in the eye one night and said, "Mr. Cole, progress can't be stopped. You can't stand in the way of the future. Be smart. Sell the land. Retire." Ethan walked out of that meeting with his fists trembling, his pride burning. He knew then that they didn't just want his land. They wanted him broken. They wanted the ranch, the legacy, gone. And for a while, they got what they wanted. Ethan fell silent. He worked less. He sat on the porch more, staring at what used to be green fields and hearing nothing but the hiss of the pipeline. His children stopped visiting as often, afraid of the tension. His neighbors whispered about him in grocery stores. He was a defeated man, until one morning, a letter arrived in his mailbox. A letter that would change everything. It was from an old friend, a surveyor who knew the land like the back of his hand. The letter was short, almost cryptic. "Then, they think they've beaten you. But you should know, that pipeline runs straight from the spring up in Dry Creek Valley. Whoever controls the source controls the water. Don't let them take it all." Ethan read the words over and over. The spring, the water source. Suddenly, a fire lit in his chest again. The HOA had stolen his land, his pride, his peace. But they had overlooked something. Something that had been there all along. And Ethan wasn't going to overlook it. Ethan didn't tell anyone his plan. He drove up to Dry Creek Valley alone, past old fences and forgotten trails, until he reached the spring. He stood there in silence. The cool water bubbling from the rocks, the same water that fed his ranch, the same water now running into the HOA's shiny new pipeline. He crouched down, ran his hands through the cold current, and whispered to himself, "If it's water they want, it's water I'll take." Within a week he had found the old owner of the land, a tired rancher who was more than willing to sell, not knowing the true value of the spring. Ethan poured every dollar he had into the deal. He sold half his herd, mortgaged what was left of his ranch, and signed the papers with a steady hand. When it was done, he owned the spring. He owned the source. The HOA didn't notice at first. Their pipeline kept running, their profits kept flowing. But Ethan waited, patient, silent, watching, until the day came when he made the call. One early morning, before the sun had even touched the horizon, Ethan drove up to the spring, turned the massive wheel of the main valve, and shut it tight. The water stopped, the pipeline went dry. By noon, HOA offices were flooded with calls. Faucets sputtered. Sprinklers shut off mid-spray. Entire neighborhoods found themselves with nothing but dry taps. The board scrambled, shouting orders, calling engineers, demanding answers. But there was no leak, no break, no failure, just silence. That evening, Richard Hale himself drove out to Ethan's ranch. He stepped out of his gleaming black SUV, his suit sharp, but his face pale. "What did you do?" he demanded. Ethan leaned on the fence, his hat tipped low. "I didn't do anything," he said calmly. "I just turned off what's mine. You dug your pipeline across my land without asking, without caring. You took what wasn't yours. But you forgot who owns the source." Hale's face flushed red. "You can't do this. Thousands of homes depend on that water. Businesses, schools. You'll be sued. The county will come after you." But Ethan only smiled. A slow, tired smile that carried years of pain and triumph. "Maybe. Or maybe you'll sit down at that table, respect the land you walked all over, and make things right. You wanted to choke me out. Now I'm holding your breath in my hands. So, Mr. Hale, how much is it worth to you?" The HOA folded within days. They paid Ethan every cent in damages. They rerouted the pipeline. They even issued a public apology, though everyone knew it wasn't out of guilt. It was out of desperation. But for Ethan, it wasn't about the money. It was about dignity. About proving that, no matter how powerful an enemy seemed, they could never take away his will to fight. Years later, when his grandchildren asked him about the scar of land where the pipeline once cut through, Ethan would smile and tell them, "That's where they tried to bury me. But that's also where I learned to rise." And if you take anything from Ethan's story, let it be this. No matter how small you feel against giants, remember, the source of your strength might be closer than you think. And when you find it, no one can take it away.